Brother Samuel. I just got out of my last class for the day, about to head to work. But something been on my heart for a minute, so I figured I'd make a video. I'm just concerned, especially with this being the dead season, seeing a lot of people get cut off, a lot of stuff happen. And just so we all continue to walk circumspect, thinking about, why we do things. Why we work, why we hustle, why we do whatever we got to do. If you have a family, why do you do what you do to put food on the table for your family? If you don't have a family, what are you doing to either prepare to have a family or simply to prepare to put yourself in a better position in life? And I heard our ancestors talk about it, heard Pastor Dow talk about it, the elders, Elder Mitchell mentioned it. We work for Israel. If you're filled with His Holy Spirit, if you're keeping His commandments, if you're fellowship with Straightway, making yourself known, and you associate with Straightway, you work for Israel. You cook for Israel. You clean for Israel. You do whatever you do for Israel, because we show we love Yahweh by how we serve His people. So as we're doing it unto Yahweh, ultimately we're doing it unto Yahweh, but we're still doing it to one another. So why do you do what you do? I had to ask myself this when I got a roofing job this past summer, because every some days, I remember one day, I think with the humidity and there's no wind, or not wind chill, there's no wind, not a slight breeze whatsoever at all. I think it was 105 degrees, especially on top of the roof with the shingles and everything. We were trying to tear them off, and I mean, we usually had a crew of 3, and we could have a roof torn off and it prepped for re-shingling by noon. We didn't even get the one side of the roof tore off before noon. I mean, it was just that bad, just sweat dripping everywhere. I mean, it just the heat exhaustion, everything. I think y'all drank enough water, but at that moment I was like, man, I'm about to get off this roof, hop back in the car and go home. But I didn't, because I was up there not for myself. I was up there for Israel. I was up there for my wife and my son. I was up there so I can learn different skills that'll be beneficial to Israel. And it was at that moment that it just clicked to me. Man, everything I'm doing is not, my boss would say, man, you're such a good worker. And at first I'd be like, oh, okay. But then I realized he's not giving me praise, he's giving Yahweh praise, and he doesn't even know it. So with all things that we do, it says we should do it unto the glory of Yahweh, but more importantly, how can you love Yahweh if you hate your brother who you can see and you can't see Yahweh? So we should be doing it unto one another. Brothers, those of you who have families, you already understand, you do it for your wives and your children. You do it for them, so that they can have, whether it be sons or daughters, so that they can have what you didn't have growing up, and not just the material things, the immaterial things. Me personally, it's easy to just go out there and just hustle and just, huff it, just bust your ass and work. But what about the other stuff? Especially for young children, when they're hurting or they're crying and they can't tell you what's wrong with them, and you have to figure it out. Do you have enough intestinal fortitude to burn the midnight oil, to figure it out, to recognize that this is a place that you have ignorance in, and fix it, to gain the knowledge? As we know, it's all at our fingertips. Plenty of elders and leaders in this assembly and people with experience that could teach us the things that we need to know. So are we willing to go and do the footsteps, learn about the herbs that might help our lives and our own lives, learn about what foods are good, and then doing the research of the products that we should be trying to use? I mean, all that stuff. Those are things that kind of fall into the category of how a husband should lead his home. So, for me at least, that's the hard stuff. We can all use the excuse, not all of us, but those of us who fit into the category, can all use the excuse, I didn't have a dad to teach me. Well, we don't have that excuse anymore. Pastor Dow, the elders, these are men of character, impeccable character, and that show themselves worthy each and every day, and they leave us without any excuse. So for me, it was realizing that, looking at the example of the patriarchs, and just doing it. I'm in school right now, not because of myself. It's because it's going to better Israel as a whole. It's going to better my household, so I can take care of the things that I need to, so that my son can have the things that I didn't have. I watch my I walk circumspectly as much as I can, not because I'm just trying to do it for myself, but I know that everything I do, my son will do eventually. And I don't want my wickedness to rub off on him and get his soul sent to hell. So, brothers and sisters, just remember that your brothers and sisters are watching you. You know, we all have Yah's spirit. We all feel things. I remember my younger brother and sister, they're twins, and when they were younger, they could feel each other's pain. And at the time, I didn't understand it, you know, just being ignorant. But we do the same thing now in the spirit. If one brother's cutting a fool, it'll trickle over into another brother, and us being ignorant and not, you know, being sober, we think, oh, it's just something out of the blue. But it's because there was sin in the camp, just like Achan when he hid the accursed object under his tent. Something starts manifesting in another part of Israel, or something, you know, in a different operation of Israel, and we don't know what it is, but we know something ain't right. So just keep in mind that everything you do, it has either a trickle down or a trickle up effect, or a trickle across effect. It's gonna mess with somebody, especially if you're living in sin and you're trying to hide it. You're not being repentant, you're not walking circumspectly, you're not trying to purge the iniquity, you're not praying to Yahweh that he would reveal your secret faults unto you so that you can turn from them, and so that you can be innocent of the great transgression. If we're not doing those things consistently, it's going to mess each other up. That talks about a lot being on one mind and on one accord. So, I mean, we see the Dead Season fleshing out a lot of that stuff. The people that weren't on one mind and one accord, and people that didn't want to submit, and that didn't want to remember. Excuse me for getting windy. People that didn't want to remember that their actions affect other people, and you have to pay the price for that. So, just a little tidbit that's been on my mind. Just, you know, why we do things, and who we're doing them for. To keep that in mind, because honestly, I heard about this truth from Pastor Darwin. You know, like I said it before, 5 years ago. But it wasn't until just a couple years ago that I actually started truly living it and truly walking the plumb line. You know, I was doing that that ugly staggering walk. You know, some people like it when you're running. Some people, you know, we all run differently, walk differently. I had an ugly run. So, you know, just moving that on up. Finally, when my son was born, that's when it really snapped and clicked. When I said, even if I don't love myself enough, even if I didn't care if I went to heaven or hell, if I didn't care if I made it to the kingdom, if my soul was saved, if I got better in life, if I could take care of myself in life, even if I didn't care about myself and I wanted to be a bum, my son didn't have that choice. He didn't have his own autonomy to make that choice. I had to make it for him. So was I willing to damn my son's soul to hell because I didn't want to get off my fat ass and work out to lose the weight so that I can play with him when he's older, or any grandchildren Yahweh may bless me with? Did I really want to put that on him, that he has to, you know, suffer and not have the things that he needs? Forget the things that he wants, just the things that he needs, because I'm being lazy and I don't want to, you know, get out there and do what Yahweh told a man to do. And all this stuff popped in my head, and it just, something snapped in me. And I got to give credit to Elder Austin. I believe it was Tabernacles 2 years ago, where we talked about immaturity versus maturity. And all those points he said about how a boy acts versus a man acts, back then I fit the boy ones 100%. But I thank Yahweh through his Holy Spirit, through the washing of the water by the word, that more and more I'm identifying with those mature or male characteristics, or man characteristics that he talked about. So shout out to you, Elder Austin. That was a beautiful thing. I keep that thing on repeat. And just to show us, you know, we really can do this. In Sirach, I think it's chapter 3, it talks about basically how a man is, what makes a person great. And, you know, I used to, let me backtrack. One of the things Elder Austin said was, a man exudes strength, he exudes character, he's useful to those around him. But a boy will run from that kind of man, because that's the same thing he fears becoming. It's the same thing he fears, that he would have to, what he thinks is giving up something to become that man. And for me, that was it. I saw Pastor Down, the elders, and as a boy, I feared becoming that, because that was, that was a man. And once my son was born, I started to have to, those responsibilities were thrust upon me. I had to take care of it. And I used to wonder, like, how is he such a man? Not having a good example in front of me, how is he that, just a man? And it finally hit me when I read, I believe it's Sirach chapter 3. It talks about those that are great. Basically, they're only great because they've humbled themselves to the Most High. They've destroyed their flesh. They've killed their flesh. They've submitted themselves as a servant unto the Most High so much that He can use them, and His power is shown through them. So once I read that, and I could see Pastor Dowd's determination, his drive, his obedience to the law, his love for people, I realized that everything that he was doing is something that is firmly in my grasp to do. It's not something that's far off, just like the commandment. It's not something that's impossible. Because if he can do it, and he's given us the instructions and the understanding on how to do it, then we can do it. And once I took hold of that, it gave me a lot of confidence and a lot of boldness to just get it done. To just get it done any way, shape, fashion, or form. So, this dead season, almost over. Not quite, but we're getting there. At least here, we haven't had any snow. I mean, look at this. We had some snow earlier this week, but not so much. About 36, 40 degrees. So not too bad of a winter up here in Indiana, but yeah, just keep going. Keep on running. Almost there. So just keep getting your hearts prepared. I know I'm definitely striving to do that. But yeah, love all y'all. So shalom.